will call the meeting to order, our council meeting of August 29th, 2024. I've had regrets from Councillor D'Entremont and Councillor Bourque as well. She's away. Next, invitation to stand and move. Anybody who feels the need at any time, feel free to do so. Looking at the agenda, any additions to the agenda? Seeing none, the agenda is approved as presented. Conflict of interest declaration. Does anybody have a conflict of interest to declare on any of the items? Seeing none. If you have a conflict at any time, feel free to bring it up at that point. Number 4, the adoption of minutes. We have our July 25th meeting minutes for the special council meeting that we had. I'm assuming you've all had the chance to look at them. Any issues with those minutes? Okay, seeing none, the minutes are approved as presented. Next, number 5, we have for decision and discussion. 5A is Argyle J-Class Subdivision Road Submission for 2025-2026. There are 3 attachments. So in our first attachment, we have a letter from the Department of Transportation, Public Works, I keep saying Transportation, Department of Public Works, discussing the ability for us to cost share our J-Class roads. 50% they fund, 50% we fund. We've talked about this before. In the second attachment, we have a list of J-Class roads in our municipality. We have, in the middle of that chart, there are 3 of them that have already been worked on, and the rest are kind of, I guess, what we have in our municipality, and it would be up to us to, if we wanted to submit, we could prioritize that list. So our third attachment is the memo that was submitted to kind of explain all of this, and I guess the decision that we have is, are we going to, there are 2 recommendations. Are we going to submit any J-Class roads for potential cost sharing with the province this year? It is something that there's no budget allocation for 2024 budget. It wasn't something that we had put in our budget. Or the other option, so we have 2 options. Option 1 is that we move that no J-Class subdivision roads be submitted for cost sharing for this year, or move that staff assess the condition of the remaining subdivision streets included in their road list and prioritize a list for council's consideration for its September regular meeting. Oh my dear, it's been a long summer. Septembular. It's a new word, I made that one. What is the wish of council on this one? How do we feel about this one?
Oh, I've got to turn this on.
Did you press your button?
No.
Okay. Does anybody have, okay, sorry, just came up. Councillor Saulnier.
Thank you. A little bit surprised as the number of roads, so I got a couple questions there. I thought that any cost sharing was to do with co-owned road from the municipality. Am I wrong with that? And while I'm sitting here, I'll ask, what classifies these roads as J-Class? Are there other J-Class roads that are just not mentioned here, or anyhow? I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Through you, the first question was the list of the J-Class roads is the list that the province provides us. That's the total of the J-Class roads. It's not the only class. Number 1, I think the first question was only on cost-sharing roads. The J-Class roads are owned by the province of Nova Scotia, but they are maintained by us. So the ownership is not joint. I don't think there's any roads that have joint ownership, but there are roads that have ownership on one side and maintenance requirements on the other. So all your highways are owned and maintained by DOT. In the case of J-Class, we pay an amount every year upwards to about $53,000 that deals with plowing and all that stuff. It does not deal with capital replacement. This program is how you would cost share. So we don't own 50% of it. but we maintain it. And so what they say is, we will make it better for you if you give us a list, we will look at the list, and if we agree that one of them needs to be done, we'll pay half, and we'll ask the municipality to pay for half.
So what is it that they do?
Well, it will depend on what's there in the first place. So if it was chip sealed or paved, they would replace it most likely with the same material. They would not upgrade the material unless you paid more than 50%. There may be an arrangement where you wanted to put pave where it's chip sealed. They may not agree with that assessment because of whatever reason, traffic, whatever, they know, we don't. And so they may disagree, but what they would say is if you want to go up higher, it's most likely going to cost you more money, not a 50-50. So if anything, you will see situations where the quality of the road actually goes down, where you might have a pave or a chip seal that goes from a chip seal to a dirt, for instance. And so that's more commonly seen. And what the province does, because they own it, they're the ones that call the shot. And so what they say is, okay, yes, we agree, Muff Road needs to be done, let's say. So they will say, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. That's basically how it works.
May I?
Yes, go ahead.
So what is exactly a J-class road? And I guess what I'm looking at, I look at one other particular road that's not mentioned here, but I need to know what the classification of a J-class road is first.
Okay. So the classifications were given by the province of Nova Scotia, and some of them actually, quite frankly, don't necessarily make a lot of sense in today's situation. So they would have been classified back in '99 or even earlier. For instance, your J-class I just described, you have other roads like K, like a K-class road. A K-class road is owned by the province and not maintained by anyone. So each class has a different, they classify them based on the nature of the road. How much traffic? Is it a side road? Is it a main road? Are we going to maintain it? Are we not? So it's quite likely that the road that you might be thinking of could be an I-class road, which is another classification, which isn't included here to the best of my knowledge, or a K road that might be, again, not maintained at all. So it would, like, we can probably, like, I've got a list of them, so we can offline take a look at that and see where the classification is.
So to be specific, I had this request in the past about the East Camoes Hill Road. It was chip sealed at some point. It's in bad shape. They always have to fill the holes, and it needs ditching. So at the time, it was a provincial issue, from my understanding. So now that this is on the table, I would kind of refer that we look at that one if we're looking at all these.
So I can only recommend you the J-class roads for this program. It's unlikely that that road would fall within this program. It doesn't mean it won't fall into something else. What I'll do while we go through this is I will take a look to see if I can find the classification of that road.
Okay,
Okay?
great, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Surratt?
Yes, I'm certainly interested in having staff look at the roads. I see we've got 3 here that should be looked at, and before any decision is made, I'd like the staff to look at the roads and, at those roads that are listed, that staff, as was suggested, had been looked at. So I'll make that motion that staff assess the condition, the remaining subdivision streets, including their rural list, and prioritize a list of council's consideration for the September regular council meeting. I'll make that a motion.
Seconded by Councillor Sonia. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried.
On the question, before we
Yep.
move on, I just took a look at the, I've got a candy. I took a look at the K roads, and it is not listed there. So that means it's a different classification. I'll see if I can get that information for you at a future.
Okay, next we have 5B, Mariner Center Capital Recommendation. All right, there are 2 attachments. There is an attachment from Linda Gallagher, who is the Mariner Center Board Chair, listing basically the capital repairs the capital projects that they have coming up at the Mariner Center, looking for so they have a surplus in the reserve, and they are looking for $120,000 split three ways per our funding formula. Now that we are owners of the Mariner Center, we have our share that we have to put in for these types of things. They have listed $36,957 that would cover our portion of the capital repairs. But in the second attachment, you will notice that we have contingency added into that, so a 15% contingency, which would be a total of $42,500. So the recommendation would be that we would support this request. Are there any questions or comments? What is the will of council? Councillor Surratt, go ahead.
Yes, I'll just maybe fill you in a little bit. I was, some of these meetings, the roof needs repair. It's leaking when you go into the Mariner Center. There are stairs that go up, or you can go to the arena. It's leaking around the cement that comes down, and, it's starting to turn black at spots there. That's not good. So they're looking at doing a quick repair, a repair of the roof, $15,000, just to get us by. And at the same time, and Alain can maybe verify this, it seems to me that Mike Brophy is involved for a complete repair of the roof. And Mike Brophy is involved in trying to see who they can get to give an estimate. So, but right now, there's $15,000 to repair the roof, just to do a quick repair where it's leaking. Number two, they're also looking at grant applications to find out how much it's gonna cost to repair the ice on the Arena 2, and which is at the end of its patching. It's been patched and patched. So they're not doing any repair, but they're looking at grants to get that repair done. So with that grant, they're gonna have to put some money in there too, which is another part of, trying to get money to do the rink. So a little bit of money there, I think it's 25,000, we have to put in also for that. So that's part of that 36,000 that we're being asked to share into that.
Thank you for that. Councillor Digdon?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion that the Municipality of Argyle allocate $42,500 for the 2024-25 fiscal year to the Mariner Centre in support of their capital project request.
Thank you. Seconded by our warden. Any other questions or comments on that? Yes.
Quick comment, just for people that are listening, I want to be sure that the people are aware this is not new money. We had earmarked that and more in the capital budget, which you approved. We just didn't know what the amount would be. The amount was significantly less. So in fact, while it sounds like it's new money, it's actually a third of the cost that we thought it would be for this year. That being said, next year is another year. So we're going to have to look at that again. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Yes.
It's not new money.
Thank you for adding to that. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Next, we have Mariner Center request for decision, MCEB, request for decision. So there was a little error today if you had looked at the attachment, you may be thinking right now, what is the attachment that's there now? It is different than what was there before. So the attachment that is included right now, we've had discussions around this as a council, but this is just to make things formal. So we know that our budget for the Mariner Center is $38 million, including municipal contribution, provincial contribution, federal contribution, as well as fundraising contribution. That is where the number is right now. We're just about to go to tender. We're very, very close. It could happen anytime. The issue that we have with the budget is if the lowest bid, and we know, and Mark Brophy has said it over and over again, we get our 99% drawings and we get our number, but he said there's, plus or minus 10%. I don't know how many times I've heard Mark Brophy say that. The number can be plus or minus 10%, and he says, and it's rarely minus 10%. So in order to kind of give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room within that budget, because if that lowest tender price comes in at $38,200,000, we can't approve it. We can't approve anything more than 38 million. So our CAO has prepared this memo to kind of explain what we're looking for here. So there's two things that we're looking for. We're looking for, if you look at the first one, a conditional grant of up to $1,630,000 to ensure the project does not go through unnecessary delays and to confirm that the municipality's intent to ensure the project goes to tender. So that means that if, and that would be shared between the three municipalities according to our funding formula. I don't know where I just went, sorry, there. So that means that if our tender goes above, so there's two different overruns that are possible. 10% overrun, 15% overrun. And our CAO has kind of given us the scenarios for what if it's 10%, what if it's 15%. This is how we protect ourselves so that we can award the tender. We are feeling quite good that there may be other sources of funding coming through as well that we have not yet confirmed, but there is some strong potential. This is all kind of like a worst-case scenario that we're trying to set ourselves up for. Just what if, the what ifs, because like I said, even if we're 100,000 over budget, we can't award a tender. And I don't think anybody here would not want this project to go through over something like that. So we're just kind of trying to make sure that we put ourselves in a position, because once a submission is made, you have 30 days to approve or not. So if it goes over, I'm going to give a scenario. If the project comes back and it's 38,450,000, we can't approve that. We have to go back to our councils. Hopefully that'll all happen within 30 days. And the councils will say, okay, yep, go ahead. But if not, then we lose that lowest bid. So setting this up gives us the opportunity to have that little cushion in case we are over, yet knowing we still have potential for more funding to come in. It's so hard to, because I know a lot of this is confidential, like with the funding pieces. It is. I'm trying to be as give you all the information that I can without, being out of line. Is there anything you would like to add to that?
I would.
Okay.
I shall try to be short.
Okay, thank you.
Didn't come on.
Oh,
He didn't press his. Oh. What is it?
Oh, okay. I got the red.
you are? Good. Okay.
So first of all, it was really well explained. It's a complicated situation.
It is.
And there are moving parts and we're in guessing zone.
Right.
Okay? So I would say that if the bid, the bid could be plus or minus 10, even your estimators say that. So they say, this is our best guess, but we could be off by 10%. If you're off by 10% on the low end, you've got an additional 10%. We believe that that you will have sufficient additional other funds so as to not have to contribute or even make a motion to conditionally contribute for this amount. That's step one, if it's up by 10. It starts to get a little dicey when it's up at 15%. So before I get into that, I want to say that this exercise is an assumption. It is a projection based on things we don't know, and we're trying to project possibilities so that you don't have to scratch your head at the last minute. You can scratch your head now. So if the project exceeds 15%, what usually happens is the lowest bid or a multitude of bids are then asked to negotiate with us in order to get below that 15%. Typically, you do not have to accept something that's over the budget of 15% without going through this, okay? So that's the logic between why we used 15% as the top number. The logic is if it's above 15, we're either going to significantly alter the project so that it is within 15, or we're going to do something even worse, which is to delay the project or whatever. Like there's worst case scenarios, I'm sure, But, so we tried to stay within this 10 to 15 range. Under 10%, you have the wiggle room, the comfort level, that you will not require any additional grant from the Municipality of Argyle to make this a reality. Secondly, both 10 and 15 assume a variety of contingencies. So even within the guess of 10%, there are guesses within the guess. It's kind of like that movie with the dream within a dream. There are moving parts within the bid that are guesses themselves. People guess what the contingencies might be, okay? If it's at 15%, then it is likely that we could be asked to contribute up to $500,000 towards this project, in addition to what you've already committed. Now, it is not to make a decision today to put that money aside. It is a decision to say this is a conditional grant. Will allow us to negotiate and perhaps enter into the tender. If we don't have that, we don't have the authority to do that. What Nicole said about the lowest bid is very true. In a bid of this nature, this is a lot of money. They typically hold the price for about 30 days. And that's about as long as anybody would want to in the volatile market of construction these days. You know, I remember a time post-COVID where you were having weekly quotes for lumber, right? It's better now, but it's not the best. So they will not guarantee their price after that, which means that lowest bidder would have the option to walk away. And now you're dealing with the second highest bidder, and I don't even know what the difference might be. It could be $2, it could be $300,000, it could be $1 million, we don't know. So it's to try to protect that low bid. So that's, the MCEB was presented with all these things, and the MCEB unanimously agreed with the recommendations that are here that you're facing. It is, again, I want to repeat, this is not a commitment for additional funds at this time. This is a commitment to fund a contingency up to 15% if we need it. So this is kind of like how we do budgets, right? We budget for the worst and we work for the best. So I can assure you, you have the best in Brophy going through and making sure that things that are priced are negotiated out if they can be. And there is room. There is room in bids to switch out materials, do things differently to save money. So it's not impossible. That's the conditional grant piece. There is a second component that has to do with the reality that we face with this project. It has nothing to do with the size of the project. It has to do with the timing of fundraising commitment. So many organizations, you've seen them advertised. You know, there were some really, really nice stories about people giving like $250,000 towards this thing. It's amazing what they have done. Amazing. However, these commitments, some of them are, here's a check for the entire amount, and some of them are, here's a check over 5 years. Okay? The job's gonna happen over the next 2 years, hopefully. So you're gonna be in a situation where fundraising dollars are not received yet, but the bill is to be paid. So somebody has to finance the difference. Somebody has to pay the bill in waiting for that fundraising cash to come in. Now, there is already fundraising received, and there will be quite a bit more received between now and the time that you have to pay those bills. This is not an immediate situation. The reason why we're raising it here now is that those that are going to accept a potential tender need to know they have the cash flow to do that. It's not just that they have the money, it's that they have the money dans la main, in hand. So the second part is to approve a temporary financing commitment of up to $2 million, with your portion being 30.5% of that, to support potential cost overrun. So this would be a bridge financing short-term loan. The interest, it is unknown who would pay the interest. We are collecting interest on some fundraising revenue, so that could offset the cost of borrowing. There's also interest on grants that we've received already that we haven't spent, so there is interest revenue accumulating that could offset the cost. I just can't tell you it will offset it completely. And if I do the math on your 2 million, it's 613,400 would be a temporary loan that would be repaid over time. So a pledge is not money, right? Now, are we going to collect those pledges? Absolutely. Like, there's no issue with that. It's just when, right? And we don't know the timing of that. We still don't know. So there's two kind of major points here. One was the maximum amount of the conditional grant for Argyle, which would be 500K. And then the portion of a temporary loan, which you would get back, you'd get that money back, of up to 613,400. Long
Thank you.
story.
No, it is complicated, and it's, as the MCEB, you know, we're trying to plan around the what-ifs and just make sure that we're aligning ourselves for all potential issues that come forward, right? We all feel like we want to make this project happen, we don't want to be slowed down, and then the other factor is there's an election coming up, and it's going to come around the same time that this tender may be issued or comes out, and what if we don't have this in place, and you've got new council members who don't know a whole lot about this project? So we're trying to do the best that we can and make sure that we align ourselves so that this is the best decision-making that we possibly can. Warden Muse.
I just want to say, and when Deputy Warden was saying, you're talking about the MCB.
Yes.
You're talking about the MCB. MCB has the power to accept or up to the budgeted amount. And this is where this comes in, that if it was over the budgeted amount, we would all have to come, each council would have to be approached to make sure that they're okay. And that could take 30 days. And what we know is every 30 days or every week and whatever that we delay is a cost. There's a cost to that. So it just to make sure that you understand that would give the MCB up to that amount to say yes without having to come, so that the tender could be awarded right away when the time comes, rather than delay it for maybe 2 weeks to 30 days. So just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. Councillor Sonia?
Thank you. Is the fundraising ongoing
Yes.
still? Okay,
They haven't even started their public campaign yet.
all right. And the MCB for our listeners is what?
The Mariner Centre Expansion Board.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Councillor Surratt?
Several questions, but I'll start with one. Deputy Warden, you said there's certain things, moving parts, but you can't say it. Well, if you can't say it, we're here as a council, if we have to go in camera, I'd certainly like to know all the facts, what's going on. Because really, and you can correct me, we've agreed, when I say we, the three units have agreed to 30 million, not 38 million. We've agreed to 30 million.
No, we've agreed to 38 million. That's come to council.
It was brought back.
Yep.
So and the 38 million is the fundraising. That's what, sorry.
The additional, yes.
The other
yes.
8.5, which we don't have in our hands yet.
Right. We have a good chunk of it, though.
In the bank. Yeah. So some of those moving parts and that, certainly to make a decision, I'd like to know we're council, we should know what those moving parts are. We can go in camera and discuss that. Certainly, to go and all of a sudden I'm seeing a 10-15% increase, that's huge. The bridge funding is, to me, not an issue whatsoever. That's just, accounting and getting your money back. And I understand, our CAO certainly explained it well. That's easy enough. But,
If it's the will of council, sorry for interrupting, if it's the will of council, we can defer a decision until the end of the meeting where we have a scheduled in-camera.
Okay.
And then you can come out of in-camera and make a decision at that time. You don't actually have to make a decision today. It would just be important that a decision be made before the tender be completed.
yeah.
Yep.
It can even be made while the tender is out, right?
Yeah.
It is by no means is this intended to be a rush job.
He seems to
there-
be.
Well, it can.
Just to me,
it can
I'm not
it-
saying it is, no.
It can certainly feel that way,
Yeah, I
and,
feel
and
like that,
I can assure, I guess what I would say is I would assure you that the MCEB was the primary assessor of this, so
Yes.
they did go through this. This is the second round.
I understand that.
So it's not, it's certainly new to some here, but not all.
Yeah.
Also, I think that it makes a lot of sense to get that information in camera, provided that you keep it in camera, and that it may inform you in a decision. So if
I
it's
don't
the
know how the
will of
others
council,
feel,
we can defer it until after an in-camera session that speaks to the sensitivities.
Thank you.
And just so you also know, this went to the other two councils as well, so they will be presented the same information. They have to make a decision. I've heard from one so far that was positive towards this, still waiting to hear from the other council. Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. Just for the people that's watching, the MCEB, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but that is just a committee, though, there's representatives on that committee from all of councils.
Yes.
And that.
Yes,
that's-
and some members of the public as well.
Exactly, that's in this project. The only thing, I guess, our 30 million that we thought this was gonna cost us, and that was sort of like looking at something with rose-colored glasses on. You know, I honestly feel as though I don't know if the 15% is gonna be enough.
Don't say that. Don't say that. Think positively.
Thinking, I guess you can think positive, or you can think, you know, reality. And a lot of, if you're watching a lot of the big projects out there now, they're quite a bit over 15%. Or in this case, you're up to just about 30%. You know, when you're looking at the 38 million or so, when you started with a $30 million project. Hopefully, we can get it done. Am I for it? Yes, I'm still for it. There's no saying I'm not. You know, I don't mind getting a little bit more of information on it, but at the same time, I feel as though we're too far into it now to back out. Our CAO gave us some good advice right along, you know, not only from the start, but right along. You know, is it going to be doable for the municipality of Argyle? Yes, it is. And I'm still for it.
And just to maybe ease your mind a bit, there are contingencies built within the budget as well. Like, those are there. There absolutely are. But our number is 38, and we just can't go over 38, right? We can't approve anything over 38, and that's kind of what this is about. There has been a lot of work done on the tender as well. Like, Mark Brophy has had other companies doing that, what he calls valuation. Like, they look at it and they've changed materials and they've brought the cost down, and like, he feels really good, like, about the tender package itself, and it's just about to go out. And that's why it has been delayed by about a month, because he was getting it reviewed and reviewed and reviewed and reviewed to make sure that multiple sets of eyes were put on this package. Councillor Sonia?
Thank you. Me again. This is more towards Councillor Surratt's comments on the amount, and it seems like surprising, but if I recall, 4 years ago, when we were talking about, we weren't committed, but we were talking about being committed to this project, and the same topic come up then about what is over the top. If it's 30 million and we have to spend another $500,000, do we say no? Do we say yes? So this conversation happened in the past. The same thing is happening now. And to Councillor Digdon's point, we've come a long ways. And I had no doubt back then that this would exceed our expectations in cost. It always does. Murphy's Law, call it what you want, but it always does. And we were prepared for that back then, and I think we are now. And I think it's in good hands with our CAO here. So just keep them posted. Thank you.
You know, our contribution is a little over 3 million
3.067.
of a $38 million project. That's something we have to keep in mind as well.
Yes.
Councillor Surratt?
This goes to the CAO. Once a tender is accepted, I read on some of the previous stuff that they can do talk to the contractor, and if
Yes.
there's areas where they can maybe cut back, sometimes you only know then. So that's in play too, that's.
Yeah, I want to speak to that. That's a very good point. I can assure, now, even if we're kind of, this is kind of guessing the worst case, right?
Yeah.
And it could be worse than this.
Yeah.
We know that. I mean, it's the risk we take when we take something this big on. Your point around negotiating the price, that happens in every tender.
Yeah.
So what will happen is, even if the price is within 38 million, we still have the right to negotiate. And I will say that when we go out to tender, and I don't like to get too deep in the details, because then people get lost in the waves, right? Because it's like, oh, but one of the things that will be included in this tender is there will be what's called provisional or optional items. So it will be listed, the contractor will be asked to price it, but there may be alternatives to that item. For instance, there is a pricing for the roof being a metal roof above the gym, or wooden roof above the gym. Wooden roof is more expensive. We know that, but we're gonna get the prices, everybody's gonna compete, and they're gonna give us their best two prices on those. So we get the option, we're not putting two roofs up, right? We get the option to select, so there's those things, but then there's also, okay, Guy, great bid, we wanna cut you down by a couple million, how do we do that? And you as a contractor may have ideas as to say, well, if we didn't have to do this, we could save you $500,000. And that's a negotiation between usually an engineer or an architect firm that says, yes, you can do that, and still be within code, or, not lose too much out of the project. These things will not go away, regardless of what we're talking about here. I'm talking about like the worst case scenario, trying to prep you for this. Now, look, we talked about this 4 years ago, and maybe even longer than that. But back then, we had 20% numbers, we had 33% numbers. Now we're at the precipice of a tender. And right now, to this day, we're still showing an estimate within 38 million. It is still showing that. I'll just say one other thing. There is a COVID bump here that is the reality of the situation. When we went out and got that 30 million, we were in the middle of COVID. The rule of thumb in large projects is that the budgets that people set at that time and the budgets that are coming out now are 40% higher.
40?
40. So if I do that math on 30 million, that gets you to 42 million.
That's right,
Okay? 42 million is not 15% over your 38.
that's right.
So this is to give you a little bit more, after you go, holy crap, this is a lot.
Which is what I just did.
I just want to yes, and that's completely, you should. This is taxpayers' money, and it's also taxpayer service. It's also something that the taxpayers said they wanted. So it's a tough one, right? But we can't just do anything no matter what. We have to have our due diligence. Alls I'm saying is that the 30 million, if you do the math at 40%, it's still very close to that 15% number off the 38 million that we had earlier. Sorry, that was a
That's
lot of
good.
info.
I just want to add that I am for this project. This has been going on. I know the hard work that's been done by you, Nicole, and the others on the board, and
Absolutely,
Danny
it's been a
too.
team.
I remember from the early days, and yeah, I am still for it. But if I could get some of those details,
sure.
I appreciate it very much.
Yep, no problem. Counselor Donaldson?
Yeah, my question is, if there is another source of income that does come in, either through a government or private, I have no idea what you're talking about, would it be in time to change what we got to do here?
I think it would almost be an in case, one of them would be possible, the other one would be in case we need it. It's kind of the best I can do until we go in camera.
Yeah, I don't even think we need to go in camera to get that information. I mean, it may be good to have, but it's not going to change my opinion. I think that we should be approving the contingency money now, and if something comes along that this isn't required, then all the better, but I don't think we should be delaying or putting off anymore, especially one council's already approved. I feel like I'm ready to go forward. I don't need an in-camera session to make this decision here tonight.
Okay. So you're willing to make the two motions?
I will, yes.
Okay, so
Need to be seconded.
second, okay, seconded by Counselor Surratt. Do you want those
Just to be
amounts?
clear,
Yeah.
we should do one motion at a time, just because we have to vote on each individually.
Okay.
So my understanding is that you would have moved and seconded the conditional grant portion?
Conditional grant of up to 500,000,
Sounds
Yes.
good.
okay?
Okay, just for clarity for the minutes.
So we'll do that first. Any questions on that one? Go ahead, Counselor.
Only question I have, and just, I know you said the word already approved, but did another council already approve it, or are they feeling positive about approving
They've
this?
approved it.
They approved
I've had
it.
confirmation.
Pardon me?
I've had confirmation that they've
Okay,
approved it.
and can I ask what one, if you please?
town.
The town.
The town
Okay,
has
thank you.
Yep. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. So now there's a second motion about the bridge financing. Is anybody willing to make that one? Counselor Boudreau?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Okay. And seconded. And just for clarity, a temporary loan of up to $613,400. That's our number. Any other questions or comments on Counselor Surratt?
Can we still have that discussion in camera?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Thank you.
for sure. I typically, that's when I share.
I know mistake, no.
No, I typically share that when we go in camera, I typically share that confidential information with you guys anyway. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you. I know it's complicated. This is complicated. It's been complicated from the start.
Well, it was.
Oh, Richard.
I apologize.
All right, we're gonna go to D. Heritage Advisory Committee. So we've talked about this before, and the PAC met to talk about whether or not they were willing to take on the duties of the Heritage Advisory Committee. And having had a presentation, they realized that it was something that they would be able to do. So there is, now it's for council to accept the recommendation that the PAC committee act as the Heritage Advisory Committee moving forward and amend the municipal heritage bylaw and the planning advisory policy to accommodate this request. If anybody's willing to make that motion. Moved by Councillor Surratt. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Questions or comments on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Next, we have the first reading, bylaw 30 of the Tusket wastewater. There are two attachments. There is the bylaw with the amendments, and there was an additional attachment added that explains the two, I believe there were two amendments to the bylaw. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, the amendment, if that is for the Tusket, or if that's for West Pubnico,
Tusket,
or Tusket?
yeah.
Or both?
This is for Tusket.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I saw some come out for Pubnico as well,
Okay.
so, yep, thank you.
So there were two amendments. One, the first one, I wrote it on, it is on page, to eliminate the $1,000 connection fee. And the other one is on page 12, and there is an addition of some language on page 12 as well. And that is regarding the engineer, I'm trying to find it. The engineer to design all new commercial and industrial connections. The developer will bear the expense of this service, which will include the design of primary tank treatment and sanitary sewer connection. Councillor Surratt.
So move, and this is, well, this is overdue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Okay, seconded by Councillor Digdon. Any other questions or comments on that?
That's first reading.
First reading, yes. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried.
Madam Chair, in response to the West Pubnico question, the West Pubnico Committee has yet to meet. So there will be similar amendments coming to West Pubnico. There will not be any engineering changes because there is no tank in that system. It's a different system. The reason why we did that in the first place is that we wanted that our engineers approve and be comfortable with whatever's going in the ground, because they might be the one that have to deal with the problem later. In the West Pubnico instance, it's a straight pipe. There's no tank on people's locale, so there's no need for that change. So we'll only look at the service charge elimination to entice housing.
Charge, taking away the $1,000 connection fee.
Correct.
Plus also any new businesses that may be hooking up. They'll need a engineer's report.
They may not in the case of West Pubnico. We still have to analyze that piece because it's a conventional system. It's not the same system as Tuscot. So we may not actually have to do that. But we are trying to eliminate the connection fee because if people want to build a house, it's already way too expensive to do that. And this was just one way to entice people to live on our wastewater system.
Okay. Next, we have F, letter to the Department of Public Works. So I have brought this one forward. I had a conversation with a resident that has a concern over the intersection in Belleville. So I want you to think about the road in Belleville when you're going towards Quinnen. You're coming from North Belleville, you're going to Quinnen, or you're coming from Belleville, going either when you get to the intersection, you can either go to Quinnen or you can go to North Belleville. The resident lives in a very close proximity to that intersection. There are 3 houses. There's one that faces the intersection and on either side of the intersection. And one of the residents has come forward and saying that it is a safety concern. It's always been a safety concern. And if you've ever driven on that intersection, if you're turning right to go towards Quinnen, you can see the road. You can see if traffic is coming, but it's to the left, coming from North Belleville. There's a hill, and you can't see whether or not a car is coming. It's actually probably safer at night because you can see the lights. But there are lots of times, if there's fog, you have to look. Even on my way here tonight, I look 3 or 4 times before I turn. And I live there, and I know that, but when we think about people who don't know those intersections, it is a safety concern. So the resident, and the other factor on top of all of this, there are no speed signs in Belleville. None. Not in North, not in Belleville, there are none. So I don't know if that would deter somebody from driving slower, but at least having a speed limit posted is an important step. So this resident has already spoken to our MLA, Colton LeBlanc, and he's already spoken with Chris D'Entremont, and I've chatted with Colton about this as well, and he knows this is coming ahead, and he agrees it is a safety concern. The resident asked that we write a letter to Public Works, so to our Minister for Public Works, asking that they take a look at this intersection and possibly come up with some safety solutions. You know, the resident said to me, could we extend the school zone? Because there is a school in that area, right? Could we extend the school zone? Could we put up some lighting, like, you know, the red light, something? What are the possibilities that could happen there to make that a little bit safer? As well as some speed signage would be a nice thing. So he has asked that we also CC our minister, the MLA, and our MP as well on that letter, just so that they're aware that this is coming forward as well. So that's the concern that I wanted to bring forward, and I'm hoping that somebody would be able to make a motion that we send that letter to the Minister of Public Works. Okay. Any other questions or comments on that? I think everybody probably knows that intersection. Yeah.
Been there.
Yeah.
And it's very irritating.
It is.
You can't see the car in that hollow
You cannot.
at all.
Nope.
You don't see the top of the car, you don't see anything.
No. Okay. Any questions or comments? So we have, it was motion moved and seconded by Councillor Sonia, and Councillor Surratt has.
I was just wondering, it'd be nice to see what the department has for accidents and stuff like that. And that, you know, I'm sure there's been, you know, because I know it's a dangerous spot. I know what you mean. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Thank you. Next, we have G, New Horizon for seniors grant application. They are looking for a letter of support. So they have submitted that they are going to be applying for a grant. We've seen this before, where we've had seniors groups applying for grants, and they ask us for a letter of support to strengthen their application. What, moved? Seconded by Councillor Boudreau. Questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, nay. Motion carried. Now we will move on to correspondence and for information. So 6A, we have a letter, it's a report, RCMP 2023 year in review, so there's an attachment. We used to get this locally. I remember when I was on the police advisory, they used to give us a report of kind of what's going on in our area, but this is for kind of all of Nova Scotia. Any questions on that one? Okay. Next, we have in 6B, correspondence on behalf of the Honorable Stephen Guilbeault, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, Minister of Environment and Climate Change. So we had sent a letter, if you look at the second attachment, on January 15th, requesting, kind of following suit with the Municipality of Barrington, asking to have our volunteer emergency service people be exempt from the carbon tax. So we received a letter in return saying that it wasn't quite the right department, that we should be sending that to the Department of Finance. What would we like to, do we want to do that? What's the request, the will of council on that one?
Were they going to forward it?
They are, perfect. I thought they wanted us to do that. Okay, sounds good. Excellent.
Awesome.
C, we have two pieces of correspondence from the Honorable Kent Smith, Minister of Fisheries and Aquaculture. So the motion that we made at our council meeting was sent to Minister Smith, and we have a letter of response. So in his letter of response, he indicates that they're continuing with the 6 sites and that they are willing to work with us on public engagement for the following sites that we had requested some more conversation with. Okay. Next, we have letter to municipalities code of conduct.
Oh, Ted wanted to speak.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Saunier.
Thank you. That the response from the province was quite promising, in my eyes anyhow. And it looks like they want to work with the remaining 47 sites. And so I would like to make a motion to ask Alain to set this work up so that, you know, better sooner than later is what I'm basically saying.
Okay.
So motion to get the province to work on this as soon as possible.
Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Digdon. Questions or comments on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Sorry about that, Councillor Sonia. I was trying to get through the agenda as quickly as I could, trying to beat your record. Next is the code of conduct. So one of the things I noticed, it talks about the code of conduct. There was a working group that was put together. They formulated 25 recommendations for elected officials, and it says that will be coming out very soon in October, following the October election. It says in here that the 25 recommendations were all accepted and that they were going to be attached to this, but it wasn't. So I'm assuming we're going to see that at some point very soon.
We'll keep the mystery. Yes, it will be in complete form, and not only that, you already have a code of conduct policy, so that will be amended or repealed and replaced with
Okay.
the new one. So you'll have plenty of time to look at the 23
25.
today, or 25 today, or tomorrow, or another day. And my apologies for the
No,
lack of that
that's,
attachment.
okay. I just was looking for it, that's all.
That's cool. That's cool.
Okay. Any questions on that one? Okay, seeing none, we have E, election 2024. So on this, we have, the election is coming up on October 19th, and this outlines all the key dates. So for anybody out there who's interested in putting their name forward, nomination period has started today and stays open until September 10th. September 11th is the last day to withdraw your name as a candidate, and there, October 9th, there will be able to vote via phone. So we're going to have the hybrid form again, where you vote online or paper ballot on the day of the election. And the remainder is kind of the different dates for the advance polls, different things like that. Did I miss anything? Scott, did you still want to?
You did very well.
Okay. Councillor Surratt.
I'd like to ask the returning officer, Surratt, the advance poll, the dates, the times, the dates are there, but I've been asked by a couple of people the times, and election date, the time. the times that you can vote.
Thank you, Councillor Surratt. Sorry, I missed that too when I see that.
It's okay.
The first and second advance poll will be from noon until 7 PM that day. And on election day, it will be from 8 AM to 7 PM. So I also want to add that, even though you did a very good job, Madam Chair, so folks will be able to vote from, as of October 9th, 2024, at 2 PM. You will be able to vote right until October 19th at 7 PM. So if you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can vote. So it's going to be for 10 days that people will be able to vote from the comfort of their own home, with their own phone, with their computer. But if folks have issues around voting because they don't have a phone or they don't have internet, they can come to the advance poll and we will help them set them up with the computer in front of them and show them how to vote. We're hoping also to, depending on where all the elections are going to take place, to go into the communities to do mobile, I'll say mobile polls. And there too, if folks have issues around internet or don't know or don't feel comfortable with using the internet, we will be there to help them. So I just wanted to put that out there, that we'll be there to help them. But on election day, there will be paper ballots for those that want to do the paper voting.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Warden Muse.
So for the advance poll, do we know where that is going to take place? Will we have more than one?
The advance polls will only take place here in
Right
the
here.
Tuscan Municipal
Okay,
Office,
so
yes.
people who want to vote at advance
That's-
will have to come here.
correct.
And then, of course, on election day, wherever there's an election, there will be a poll in order for ballots.
So there will be 3 polling station on election day.
Okay, not
So
one
the-
in every district?
No,
No.
Okay.
no. So if you see the one in Tuscan, there will be one here that will include District 1, 4, and 5. I hope if there is an election in those districts. In Westport, it would include District 2 and 3, so if there's elections in those, they will vote there. And at the West Pubnico Legion, it would include District 6, 7, 8, and 9. I missed 9 there, so,
Right.
so they would vote there.
Thank you.
Counselor Donaldson.
Maybe I shouldn't be asking this because I'm not running again, but the voters list, how is that being compiled?
Good question.
Because the last one was horrible.
Yeah, the voters list we received from Elections Nova Scotia, and to get you into detail how they get it, I wouldn't know,
So
but with,
how old is that? Because since COVID, my community especially,
It changes.
lots of people have
there's
moved
been,
in.
there would be, it's gonna be like every year that I've been involved in elections, the election list, there will always be, need to do amendments, and we have been working on, looking at some of those and amending those that maybe have been deceased or have moved. We know the first, I guess, first round of, voting list that we received, we were missing like 500 to 600 people, so that's been fixed. So we have that now. But again, it's not gonna be perfect. It's never, gonna because people are moved in, people have died, people have moved, whatever. So,
Turned 18 since the
Turned
last
18,
election.
exactly. So it's never perfect. So if folks have issues, they can definitely call me or email me. We will have a link that people can just kind of email and give me their information for me to verify if they are on the voters list. We will actually promote that probably next week, so I can check.
So does the voting pins go out to an address or do they go out to people on the list?
They go out to people on the list,
Okay.
at the address that's on the list, that's right.
So if I move, mine would probably go
To your address.
Could be to your old address.
My old house.
Could, yes, that happens, yes.
Okay. Just one of the candidates going to run in my district. I'm going to do as much help as I can because pointing out who people are that's moved in and, okay, I've said too much.
I do want to talk about the electronic voting process. So the voters list, like, the voters list will be accessible to the person that's running. So where, like, it's the responsibility of the voter to inform when they move and all that stuff, but you know that doesn't always happen. Like when you move, the first thing you don't think about is, oh geez, I better tell the elections Nova Scotia that I moved. Like, it just doesn't happen. So, and then the election comes, it's like, oh, poop, I was supposed to tell somebody that. So the good news is when you guys are going door to door, some of you going door to door, you will then note the new people and you can ask them if they've had the PIN, if they had a PIN that it's accurate or not. If they haven't, then a PIN can always be issued to them during the election. And it's a lot easier to do that with the electronic version than it would be on a paper ballot. So when it comes to the time where people are actually voting, those names are showing on that list. And so what you see going door to door is nobody sees how people vote, but everybody sees the candidates see if somebody voted. So if Scott voted, okay, you don't have to bother him anymore and go to the polling station, right? Because he's voted, right? So there's going to be a lot of the work with the list will depend on you as well, going door to door and actively asking that question. Not just you, of course, but those that are also running that aren't in this room.
Warden Muse?
Going to the question that Councillor Donaldson had about the list. Having worked with Elections in Nova Scotia, I know how their list was made. We used to do enumerations. We used to go and you hire people prior to the election. They would go to every village and they would get the information, new people here, whatever. That kind of went by the wayside. They make their list based on the federal list. And you all know what the federal list looks like as well. Now, another thing that they do, and they do this supposedly, if someone passes away, they remove them not just during election, through the process. And I think that the federal, and I could be wrong on that one, because I've never worked for the federal, but after income tax, if you've moved, I think a new address would be added to their list as well. They might update their list as they go, right? Based on information that they have through other sources, right? But I've never seen a list where in the years that I worked for the provincial that was accurate. It was, you would add and add and add, and you would have people in the house that have lived there for 20 years. The husband would be on the list, the wife would not be, and so much of that, and it's a lot of work.
It is.
It's a lot of work for us when we go to a house and find out and see they're not on this list, or this is new people living here. And it's something that we used to do, but I don't think we can do that anymore. We as candidates had forms that we could bring, and they could fill it out home. We could bring it to the returning office, and they would change the list. That doesn't happen anymore. That hasn't happened in a couple of elections, I don't believe. So, anyway, that's the story about the list.
It's always,
Don't expect it to be accurate.
no, it's a work in progress. Councillor Surratt?
So Scott, so if people get a PIN, obviously you're on the list.
Yeah.
That's right. If
right. So
folks
that's a
get
way
the
to-
voters' PIN number, or that means they're on the list. But
Very
if you
good.
didn't receive one,
Yeah.
then you're not on the list,
And-
so you should let me know.
So they can call you
Yes.
to double check.
Yep, yep.
Thank you.
So if the polls open by October 9th at 2 PM, definitely PIN numbers should be out before then.
Yep, the PIN numbers are supposed to be out at the end of September.
Okay. So by the
So,
end of September,
September.
I'm going to write that down. If people haven't received their PIN numbers,
They
PIN,
should
that's an
be
issue.
reaching out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an issue.
okay.
I can say today, I've checked 25 different voters, and I was able to find all 25.
Okay.
So it was good.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, or comments on that one? Seeing none, we'll continue on. We have West Pubnico Corporate Golf Event. There's an attachment. There is a golf scramble coming up on September 14th. They're looking for teams of 4. They want you to respond by September 7th. Is this like a staff? Like, what would you say? Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the past, we've opened this up to council, and we've had a couple of councilors actually participate in the past 2 events, and then we found 2 staff members to kind of fill in that team. Again, we could do the same, but we have done it in the past, but open up to council first, then staff second.
Okay, so if anybody's interested, do they let you know?
I guess we're looking to see if we
Right
want.
now?
Right
Okay.
now, I guess we're asking council if we want to continue with that.
Okay.
And you guys can give us advice on, is council interested? And then, yeah, they can give us the information and I can take care of that, yeah.
Are there any counselors that would be interested in that? Counselor Boudreau?
Yeah, just because I'm a golfer and I played in the
Yes.
last couple of tournament scrambles, I'm very interested, and I think it's really important for the municipality to show up there.
Excellent.
Yeah,
You have to have a shotgun too.
yeah, you gotta, yeah.
Shotgun start, that's it.
That's what it is.
You need a shotgun.
Just-
It's like the wedding.
I agree that it's good to have a team there. I've played with Gordon, with Councillor Boudreau in the last 2, I think. Yeah, that we've played that. Probably, I'm not going to play this year. I'm tired of showing you off.
Oh, dear.
No, I probably won't this year. I'm getting, my legs are, and I'm tired very, very fast.
Is there anybody else who's interested? I'm not a golfer. Yeah, I'm not a golfer.
I'm not either.
We just, every year we look to support the West Pubnico Golf, because we get
Yes.
asked to a lot of these, but every year we look to support the West Pubnico Golf. This was again an annual thing, so I think the first decision is, are you interested in supporting
Yes.
the West Pubnico? And I think I'm hearing a yes.
Definitely.
It's right on the cusp, because we can make decisions on sponsorship right up to 500.
Yeah.
So it's like 500 plus tax, so we
Yeah.
weren't sure what to do.
Yeah.
So we can certainly make that happen and you can submit your names. I don't think we need a motion only because it's right at the cusp, but we just wanted to make sure that you were interested.
So we could even check with Calvin and Kathy to see if one of them is interested.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Last time we had, somebody else.
Okay, then we have financial requests. Number 7, grants to organization, there's a memo attached. So there was an error that happened. It was not, not done intentionally, but we want to make sure that the organizations are given their due amounts. So we have the Wedgeport Tuna Museum and the Shag Harbor Incident Society. We are looking to move to approve $1,500 for the Wedgeport Tuna Museum and $1,000 for the Shag Harbor Incident Society for the 2024-2025 fiscal year. Okay, do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Sonia. Any questions or comments on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Any agenda topics for the next meeting or motion, notice of motion by councilors? Okay. Question period? Nothing, Scott? So we now will move to our in-camera portion of our meeting. Moved in, do we have a seconder?